Literally just started snowing outside.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. It's actually gorgeous here today. It's a bit warmer as well, which has been a little pleasant.
That's good. It dropped to -6, but feels like -12 yesterday where I am. So
Oh, yeah,
other side
that's
of the
cold.
coin. Yeah.
But you obviously got good heating since you're wearing a t-shirt.
I mean, I have a small little friend just
Nice.
hiding on
I
the side.
also have a fan heater under my desk for just such purposes, but it's not on right now. You'll be pleased to know. Hence, no blur or blowing air in the background.
We can always deal with that. Having
In
interviewed
the edit.
people across the US, the amount of air conditioner noises
Oh yeah, I
is usually
bet.
the one which kicks in.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. When I typed in yelling at concrete, the first
Hmm,
one that came up was like number 73 or something for reasons that are inexplicable.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
always the way it happens. And I think your accent's changed.
Oh,
This is my hypothesis that episode from like a couple of years you sound really quite British, and then as episodes go on and the more recent ones you've been naturalized
I've been
by the
partially
American
naturalized.
accent.
Yeah, I can imagine that. The problem is the more British I get, the more I have to repeat myself
Oh yeah,
to American friends and colleagues. So it becomes
yeah.
just a cycle of, all right, how much do I have to adjust this? And I'm Northern as well, so it's like there's words which come out of nowhere and they just don't understand. I used the
I
term brolly
worked.
and there was so much confusion.
Oh yeah, probably. But also things like daughter, water,
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah,
I used to I worked on cruise ships. So I was 19 when I went to
right.
America for the first time, and I worked on cruise ships for 4.5 years. And by the end of it, I just never used the word water, quarter, or daughter in a British way
Yeah,
because it was impossible. And what?
yeah, yeah.
What'd
So
she say?
what did you say? I'm very softly spoken as well, which the New Yorkers don't really like. So
Oh, but it's good
always
for
repeat.
podcasting.
It
It's good
is.
for podcasting.
It is.
It gives everyone this nice soothing wash.
It's all about calm. That's what we're all about.
Exactly.
Despite the title of the podcast, it's all about calm.
Yeah, yelling quietly at concrete.
Whispering at concrete, as it were. If you're all set up and ready to go, you got a
Yep.
drink and whatnot. We can
Coffee.
happily dive into it if you're all good.
I am, and I noticed that I'm now swathed in sunlight,
It's
which is
wonderful.
nice. Mm,
Atmospheric lighting.
exactly.
I like to keep the cacophony of chaos just behind me to,
Yeah.
it feels like a sincere approach to what I
You can't
do.
see my desk, so
I'll send you a picture of my desk. It's horrifying.
mine's pretty similar.
Well, welcome to the podcast then, Tricia.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Yeah, yeah. I think you're one of like the few novelties in the sense of you do podcasts
Oh yeah,
as guests. Yeah. Like most guests
yeah,
I either like find or they reach out or whatnot, and then it's the first time experience of them ever
ah,
doing anything like it.
yeah.
Whereas you yourself have your own podcast, which
I have
is
my own podcast, and I guest on other people's podcasts
you do.
relatively regularly. Like not that regularly, I suppose, but probably I do one a month. I think if I
Yeah.
had to do the maths, I reckon it works out about that. Maybe a bit less once every
How
six
long have
weeks
you
or
been
so.
doing the podcast thing then? What got you into
I
that?
started it in the first series came out around May, June 2024.
Hmm.
So yeah, it'll be 2 years this summer. Um, and I started it, well, I mean, I started it because I started a process for myself
Mhm.
about nearly 5 years ago now. I started doing this 10-year plan because I wanted to live with a greater creative balance in my life. And I just found it really, really useful. It was a really useful process. And after I'd done it a couple of times, I put an article out on LinkedIn and it got such a huge response that I thought, there's a book in this. And then I realized that books are really long. So this is true. And so after I'd written the first, after I'd planned the book, I did one of those things. You know, you can buy those schemes where it talks you through sort of a regular process. If you write every day for 20 minutes, you have your
Right.
book after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't have a book after 6 weeks, but what I did have after 6 weeks was all the chapters mapped out and what the content of each one would be.
Hmm.
And then I thought, actually, I think that would make quite a good podcast, but a research-based podcast. So
Yeah.
one that kind of delves deep into a topic, and then I
Hmm.
have just one interview every 6 episodes, basically. So which draws together a little theme. So that's how it began, was at pure laziness. Quite easier to do a podcast than write a book.
I'll be honest, I relate to that most of the time. I think I come across better in spoken word than I do on written page, mainly because of my poor want to grasp grammar on the page. I don't proof, so it's very much a challenge of
You
like,
could always get someone else to do that for you, surely.
I
No, I mean,
could,
I
but
do write actually. I mean, I have a newsletter that I send out every fortnight, and I'm actually doing a PhD, which also involves a
mm,
lot of writing. But you've got 4 years to do that, so it's not all to be done tomorrow.
plenty of time.
Um, and the podcast, I think I don't know what will happen, but I suspect that I might go back to the book idea once I've
Mm,
finished the overwhelming nature of the current writing project that I have in the PhD. Um, Back to the book idea then. But for right now, it's a really great vehicle. I love it. And also I just meet really fascinating people. So it's fantastic. And also that you can talk, the fact that you are in New York right now and
mm.
here I am in London, we can have a chat. It's just amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
What
the
you can do.
technology of the world. It's
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
it is.
I think 20 years ago, I was like, no, this
I
doesn't
know.
seem like a thing which would ever take off as like
Yeah,
an idea. Surely,
I
surely
know.
not. No.
I know.
Anyway, we'll do a quick intro if you don't mind.
Of
We'll start
course.
with a very basic and existential crisis question of who are you?
I am Tricia Duffy,
Mhm.
and I do a lot of things because
Okay,
I'm just not interested in being boxed into a tiny little LinkedIn description about who I am and what I do. I
sure.
think that's for the birds.
Hmm.
So I am a songwriter and a singer and a podcaster and a researcher. And I'm also a strategy consultant for my sins. And I'm a mum and a friend and a runner um, as well.
Nice.
Lots of things.
Which were
We
you
all are.
first?
Which was I first? Singer,
Singer.
probably. As a child, very much a singing in the back of the car with my head turned myself around in the seatbelt,
Hmm.
turned my back to the back rear window, and sing at the top of my voice, thinking no one could hear me if I wasn't facing them. It's bound to work.
I love that the child logic there.
The child logic. Yes, no one can possibly hear me.
No one
And I
can.
also wrote a hell of a lot of poetry as a child, sort of
Right.
angsty in the middle of the, and quite as a young child, not just as a teenager angst,
Hmm.
but like at 7, 8, I would write poems. In the middle of the night, I would wake up and suddenly have to write a poem, about strawberries or litter picking or something equally profoundly,
Hmm.
whatever was bothering me at the time. So it doesn't really take a psych major to work out how you might become a songwriter later if you like singing and writing poems.
No, most
Kind of goes
definitely. Did you end up in the kind of path then, which I find a lot of creatives end up in, which is you have your initial inspiration of, I want to do this, I want to do quite an abstract art thing, I want to songwrite, I want to paint, I want to do that kind of thing, and then realize, oh wait, that doesn't pay the bills. I might have to
kind
go
of,
study
yeah.
something, yeah.
Well, actually, I left school at 16 with no qualifications and no prospects.
Even better.
So that was a little bit worrying
Hmm.
for everybody around me, although not for me, bizarrely, which when I look back on it, it never really concerned me. But when I was 19, I flew to America to work on cruise ships,
Hmm.
and I was an entertainer, so I sang. And the great thing about that was I did get to pursue my kind of creative dreams and I mean, when I was a teenager, bearing in mind that I'm a tiny bit different generation to you, let's put it that way. When I was a teenager, I watched television, and America to me was just like this great,
Hmm.
brilliant, fantastic place. And my overriding ambition at around 14, 15 years old was to get to America, like above all else. If I could just get to America, my life would be okay. And I would
Yeah.
leave my circumstances behind because there was opportunity and money, and you could sing in a bar and
Hmm.
it would be fine, and there would be adventures. and Bruce Willis was there. Um, important details.
Oh, of course, yeah. You'll just run into him on the street any day. Like,
Obviously,
yeah,
obviously.
obviously.
Uh, so that became really like overwhelming ambition to the point where I think my parents were quite worried that I might just
Mm,
suddenly like run away there and then get kind of arrested for being an alien, as Sting would put it.
mhm.
Um, but my mum's friend's daughter had worked on cruise ships and she managed to get me an interview. And then I managed to get a job on cruise ships, which I spent 4 years traveling around the world and having a great time singing,
Mm,
entertaining, calling bingo, all that. And then when I came home, what you articulate really did happen to me, which was that I'd been in a really fortunate position working on
mm.
cruise ships. I did earn like money I'd never imagined, actually. It wasn't like a huge salary, but you pay no tax and you have no rent and you have no food to pay for. And so
Yep,
everything you earn, you just put in your pocket and have a great time with.
yep.
And I came home, and at the time, I really wanted to be an actor or a singer, and the gig economy of that and going away from having this regular income just felt like too much for me. So I did
Yeah.
get a conventional job. Yeah.
It's the trap,
Yeah.
which,
It's a
yeah.
trap. Yeah.
It's the trap, but it's also it's something I always try to encourage artists to feel less bad about is that the mountain outside of the trap is so great that realistically this is the sensible choice for them in kind of like a well-being sense. People always feel really sad about it, and I'm like, yeah, but there's a well-being sense of having a regular pay allows you to do your creative things at
Well, the
times.
trouble is that sometimes it doesn't, because what
Yes.
happened to me was that I thought I've been working on cruise ships in the entertainment department. My
Mm,
most transferable skills will be in something like television, probably. So
sure.
I'm going to try and see if I can get a job in television. Little did I know that, first of all, girls weren't allowed to do creative editorial jobs. They were only allowed
Yep.
to do business and admin jobs. I mean, how could I possibly know that? And also, I was literally the only person in the whole of the television industry. This is an exaggeration, told for dramatic effect, you
Sure.
understand, without a degree. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody had gone to like a lot of very lovely, educated,
Hmm.
wealthy, middle class
Yep.
men with
Yep.
their red brick university degrees. And there I am swimming around sort of undercover, and no one seems to realize that I don't have a degree, but everyone assumes I do. So this
Oh,
was an issue for me. I had quite a big chip on my shoulder about it, to the point where I did a degree with Open University. It took me 6 years and I did it part time. And I kept it under wraps. Every weekend when everyone was going out and having fun, I'd be like, I can't because I've got to study, which was a lot. But I ended up kind of leaving. I sang still, but that was the only
yeah.
thing I held on to really. And not that much. Then I had kids and they take up all your extra spare time. And so I really told myself, I actually started to tell myself a story that I wasn't creative. And it was the
Mm,
10-year plan that allowed me to get back into actually what I really want to do is play music and write
yeah.
songs and live a creative life that I don't live right now, where I'm just either, slaving at home or slaving at work for someone else's benefit. It doesn't suit me. But it all happens when it happens, and I feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. So it sort of has worked out anyway, in
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form, in the way it's supposed to. I think. I
I
hope.
think, yeah, I mean, that's all we can really hope for, right? You know, is
I
that it
think
works out
so.
in some way or another. I mean, even if it
Yeah,
doesn't, you still lived a significant life one way or another. That's.
I think so. I mean, I think what I'm doing now, and also just like having to relearn some
Mm,
stories about myself, has been a bit of a complicated journey, because if you tell yourself you're not creative
mm.
for long enough, you do start to really believe that's true.
Yeah.
Um, if that's the only way you can cope with your circumstances, is make it okay for yourself by saying, well, actually, it turns out I'm better at the admin anyway.
Mm,
I'm not really. I'm quite
yeah.
disorganized, just very good at hiding it.
It's it is one of those kind of bugbears I have of when I meet people who do say that. I'm not creative. I can do
Yeah.
this, and this, but I'm not creative, and it's always a little saddening of I have to sit with them and say, okay, well, what do you do in your day to day? And like, oh, well, I'm at home and I bake and I do this, and I'm like, okay, well, you just mentioned at least one creative thing there.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's let's roll with that, see where it takes you. And like you say, you can easily convince yourself that you aren't
Yeah.
creative, but at the same time, society can convince you that you're not creative, that you only have
Society wants
something to
us in
do.
lanes, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It likes us in these nice little narrow lanes. We're very easy to
Hmm.
organize, and we can just, contribute to the economic system, which none of us can be responsible for because we didn't create it, but
No.
yet we live by it.
Hmm.
And so, as a result, it's very easy to be reinforced. Well, you've got to get food on the table, roof
Hmm.
overhead. So,
Yeah.
if you're not any good at it, probably not worth trying. Whereas actually, what I'm trying to advocate for now is being good at it is relevant. It's the doing it that really matters. And by the
Hmm.
way, if you do it and in 10 years' time, you could be a master at it if you choose, because you will get better at anything and you might
Hmm.
come up with something truly profound because practice makes perfect, really does. And art is perfect in all of its states anyway. So, you know,
Yeah,
it's
sorry, I was just
cool.
going to latch onto the word you used there, which was like you could be the master of it. I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting one as well because I think so many people have a different interpretation of what that means.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think for most of general populace, because we relate so much of what we do day to day to financial gain, right?
Yeah.
To them, master is, oh, I'll be a millionaire because I'll be singing. I'll be a millionaire because I'll sell paintings for thousands and thousands. Whereas I feel like we're on the same page in the sense of we're like, well, you be a master of it in the sense of you gather your satisfaction from it.
And also, you'll be really good at it,
Yeah.
probably.
Like,
I mean, it was Van Gogh a master painter? Probably. He didn't make a penny. He sold one painting while he was alive.
he did.
So, I don't think anyone disputes his mastery just because he didn't make a living from it. So I think, yeah, thinking that money and mastery are attached
Mm.
is a fundamentally flawed idea. And also, you might not want to become a master at something, whatever your craft is, whether it be songwriting like me or, I don't know, stained glass making or ceramics or jewelry making or photography or anything else besides whatever, or writing, podcasting, whatever it is. But you certainly get better. I mean, you must know from your own experience, the first podcast you do to the ones you do now, they're completely different. And you feel, that they're better because of your experience and the way that you can kind of weave a narrative curve through a conversation, etc.
There's definitely a level of what's the word? Streamlining, which occurs
Hmm.
what occurs
Hmm.
through. I think something, especially with the podcast, and I don't know if you found this with your own work, is I did a lot of not wanting to hit the same narrative beats of most podcasts, which I'd listened to
Hmm.
previously, where it was, you get the guest on, you ask a bunch of canned questions, and then they promote their book. And I sit and think, okay, well, the next one will be exactly the same, just with a different actor, comedian, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I pushed back quite hard on that at the very beginning, and it was very, very low budget, very DIY. Of it's me and a friend sat at a kitchen table, and we're going to talk for an hour. And I think the first one's about ghosts. I'm pretty sure it's very much out of the box, but over time, just because of how these skills develop, you end up in that rhythm
Yeah,
of these are the things which we talk about, but at the same time, keep your own little style within it.
exactly. You have a
Yeah,
unique sort of feel, don't you,
yeah,
of and a unique rhythm that can't be compared to anyone else's because you took the time to
hmm
develop your own kind of tone of voice and your own, yeah, rhythm. I guess that rhythm
hmm.
is a good word to describe the way that you podcast, I think.
I think there is a fear as well, especially with people who don't create on the regular about that, because that
Yeah.
teething period can be months or years. Some people bash away at a drawing for a couple of days and get tired of it, whereas other people will spend, 3 decades trying to make one drawing and think, okay,
Yeah.
well, this is it. I nailed it this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that ray of inconvenience.
It is. And actually, because of that societal pressure of there's no point doing it if it's
Mm.
bad, that's where people give up after the first hurdle. Like that, there's a guy I met at a conference. I was speaking at a conference last year, and he said to me, "Oh, your talk made me remember that I always really wanted to dance. And a couple of years ago, I took a dance class, but I was terrible on the first class, so I never went back, even though I'd paid for a whole like
Yeah.
6 weeks or something." And I was like, did you enjoy it? He was like, I loved it, but I was terrible, so I never went back. I'm like, okay, so you always wanted to dance and you loved it, but
Yeah.
you didn't go back because you were terrible. You expected to be good on your first class. I just don't understand the logic. Oh, well, I was terrible. I thought I was going to disrupt the whole class. I'm like, did the teacher say that? No, no, she was really encouraging and tried to get me to come back. I'm like, well, mate,
It's
probably week 6, you might have had a breakthrough.
it's a,
But
an interesting catch-22 as well because like you say, I don't understand the logic of that, but also there's like a two balance thing when people pay for a course. If I
yeah,
watch people put money down and go, I'm going to do 10
yeah,
lessons, and then they do 2 lessons, and I'm thinking, well, in my head, that's way worse than being embarrassed. I've just wasted money.
yeah,
And then on the other hand, I find other people who will be like, I've paid for 10 lessons. I hate it. I hate everything about it, but I'm going to do 10
yeah,
lessons.
yeah. Yeah, I know. Oh, well, I think the best thing to do is to go to the second lesson at least
Mhm.
and see, maybe the third. I use a phrase called compound creativity. Say to my kids, I've got 2 boys and they both play instruments, and I'm like, it's all about compound creativity. If you can't get that chord right now because your fingers won't reach it, if you try over 10 days, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, by day 10 you'll get a breakthrough, but only because you had terrible rehearsals on or practice sessions
Yeah.
on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You then get 10. It's like compound interest, to use an economic term. um it and then it happens, and that's the same with every craft, like literally every single one. You go through good day, you get lucky on the
Mhm.
third day and you have a really great session, and then it goes to hell in a handcart for the next 3 days, and then you get lucky again, and then suddenly you start getting luckier and luckier. Oh, why is that, I wonder?
Yeah.
Compound creativity, that's why.
You get better at guitar by putting your guitar down for 5 days and walking away from it.
Well, only if you picked it up for the previous 5 days,
Only
though.
if you put it over,
You
yeah.
don't get better at guitar
Yeah.
by never picking it up. That's for sure.
Obvious. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm curious from a creative point of view if you ever find, obviously, we agree with this methodology, right? We agree
we
that,
do.
you have
Yes.
to practice in some way, regardless of what practice is to you. Practice can take many forms. That's a whole
Hmm.
other topic. But I'm curious for you if you ever end up in a situation where you don't know how you did it. You
Oh
kind
yeah,
of creating
100%.
something comes out and you're like, oh no, I don't know what I did to get that, and now I have the
Yeah,
fear.
100%, especially with songs, because if
Mm,
you can get into that flow state, where you're kind of, devoid of consciousness of the rest of the world and you're just in yourself, they
yeah.
pour out of you and you don't even know. I mean, it's like they flew in through, this is how it feels to me. It's like they fly through the window, come in to you and come out through your mouth and your fingers, and there you are. And you have no idea. But I'm also aware of like things that have been happening subconsciously
Right. Yeah.
in my brain that have enabled that to happen. I had this really amazing write with an artist, a Luxembourgish artist, last year, where the night before we'd been playing a game,
Hmm.
and the game is one of these things where you read different cards and it's supposed to be sort of like an icebreakery type game. It's not Cards Against Humanity, but it's a sort of like a card game where
Right.
you just have to answer the card. And the card that we'd all there was a few of us, all songwriters, we were on a camp, and the card that we had all been reading was, can you tell your life story in 3 minutes, which I loved. And the average song in the pop world is 3 minutes. You might see the
Hmm.
link there. So the
Hmm.
next day, I said to her, she'd not played the game. She'd been tired and gone to bed. And so the next day, we were in the studio together, and I said, right, here's my challenge to you. Let's write your life story in 3 minutes. You need it for your record. Let's do it. And she was like, okay. She started just singing a tune.
Hmm.
We were with the producer. He started playing a harmony, and I started typing like her story
Yeah.
as she was singing it, almost in real time. And we were finished, complete song done, like an hour and a half later, something like that, which is so quick. Normally it takes all day to get a
Yeah.
demo.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were just like, where'd that come from? It was
Hmm.
really weird. It was like I was being overtaken by something.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Everything
it's
kind of
lovely when
sticks
that happens,
together.
though. I think that's why we do it, though, because that feeling is
Oh,
quite addictive.
oh, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting speaking to other artists and creators. because I find, and this is, I feel this is a personal thing to me, but I think a lot of artists and creators are very much like, oh, I love creating. Like it makes me feel
Hmm.
amazing, and I want everyone to create and all these kinds of things. And I sit there and go, well, yes, but there's this sort of like little dark period where you're really chasing it. You're chasing
Hmm.
that addiction, and it feels like an absolute curse to have discovered that early in life because then you spend the rest of your life going, I need that feeling again and I can't
Yeah,
get it.
yeah, yeah.
And it's just
I
because
think
paint
it's
dripped at one point and you're like, oh no, it landed perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I meet people. People often get in touch with me who've written one song, or they've written a
Right.
few songs. They've written one they're really proud of, and
Hmm.
then they want to release it. Like later
Right.
in life, they're not necessarily musicians or songwriters professionally, but they decide that there's one song, and they'll be happy once they've released that one song. And I'll say to them, "What are you going to do next? Do you want to talk about things? Do you want to kind of think about some skills, or do you need recommendations of books, or do you need anything?" Oh, no, 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 because I'm literally just going to work with the producer. I'm going to release this one song. And then I'm like, of course you are. And I just sit and wait. And then sure enough, about usually between 2 and 3 months later, the
Yeah.
call comes. Oh, I've decided actually I might like to release another one. Yes, of course you do,
Yeah.
because
I
it's an addiction that
wonder
you're
why that
never,
is.
ever going to be able to give up.
You discover the creative heroine of the mind, and
Exactly.
suddenly you're trapped.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Unlucky. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did.
that
I
is awkward.
I did have a question actually because I was doing a bit of reading on your site around your songwriting, and there was a term in it which I hadn't really associated with songwriting, which was method acting
Oh, yeah.
songwriting, and I was curious what that actually means.
Well, what it means is that basically I had a harebrained scheme in
Okay,
2024,
sure,
which was, could I use method acting techniques as a songwriting device? That was
right.
my kind of thought provocation, my thought
Hmm.
experiment. And I decided to, first of all, I thought I'm going to write an album of songs in other people's voices, and
Okay,
I'm going to use method acting techniques to identify characters, and then I'm going to write from their perspectives. But what actually happened, because, projects, you come up with an idea and think that would make a great concept album. I think I'll
yeah.
do that.
Hmm.
And then obviously projects have their own idea about how they're going to be, and
Hmm.
they push you
Gosh, yeah.
around until you do what they want. And this project, I did a method acting class,
Hmm.
and in order to do the class, when I spoke to the coach, I said to him, look, just give me acting classes. I don't want to come at this from my project. I told him what I was doing,
Hmm.
and he knew that I was an inexperienced actor. I'd done quite a lot when I was a child, but I hadn't done anything for years.
Hmm.
Um, but I said, I want a pure experience. And he was like, okay, in which case you better learn yourself a monologue, my lovely. So he was like, go and find something you like, and it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what it is. And so I found this monologue from a play by Tennessee Williams called The Rose Tattoo. And the character's name is Serafina. She's the main protagonist of the play. And this amazing monologue, which I absolutely love. And I love Tennessee Williams' work. So I was really pleased to learn it and work on it and all the rest of it. And then I thought, I'll write a song from her perspective, which I then did. And then I thought, I just wonder if there are some more songs in this play because this character is so fascinating.
Right.
And my coach was like, well, of course she is because she's well written. And a well written character should be just as flawed with just as much
Hmm.
backstory as you or I.
Hmm.
That is how good they should be. So I still have the bits of paper somewhere. I don't know where they are in this. They're somewhere in this room. But basically, a huge A3 graph paper, and I just mapped out for every scene and every act in the play. I
Hmm.
mapped out all of the different kind of emotions that she goes through, and that generated 84 different song titles. And I was like, well, in that case, there were some doubling up in those. They
For
weren't
sure.
all.
For sure.
There was
Yeah.
some were the same, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that I could write an entire album from her perspective, and so that's how I have created a record which will come out this year
Hmm.
in June called Being Serafina, and it's 12 songs all written from her perspective, from the things that happened to her during the play. I mentioned I wrote that in 2024. I then had to ask permission from the Williams estate, so it
Oh,
took 9 months to get that, and that's
interesting.
caused a little delay of my creative endeavors because you have these brilliant harebrained ideas, and then you actually have to execute them with professionalism and get things right. So yeah, so I'm yeah, it comes out in June, which is very exciting. But basically, I used method acting techniques
Hmm.
to get into character, use my own emotional memories, but not have to expose my own story, if you
Right.
see what I mean. So you can
Hmm.
use your own, for example, experience of grief or loss,
Hmm.
but apply it to someone else's circumstances to get a really truthful, vulnerable perspective that is
Hmm.
not necessarily giving away all your own stuff,
Okay.
but still just as authentic and just as
Yeah.
and now my PhD is in the relationship between Stanislavski, who was the acting
The
coach that
pure
came
one. Yep.
before Method, because Lee Strasberg was
Hmm.
Method, and he was one of his disciples, if you like. Um, so AI, yeah, I'm looking at Stanislavski AI and songwriting. That's my PhD.
That's
'Cause
interesting.
yeah, fascinating.
Well, no, there's like a couple of things like, the reason I asked was because when I think of method acting, I think of like De Niro and etc. who will go work in a
Live the
cab
part.
for a year, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if you're writing songs, are you going and doing random things to get
I was
the
doing
embodiment?
random things. Yeah,
Right?
I
Yeah.
was cooking Sicilian food,
Right.
wearing her disheveled clothes, looking. She goes through a big grief process during this
Hmm.
play and spends most of it wearing just a petticoat and
Right.
or a slip, looking rather disheveled and not in a really great state.
Hmm.
And I would also listen to, like, you can find playlists that have got 1950, the play set in the 50s, early
Yeah.
50s.
Yeah.
You can find playlists that have got that music and with advertisements of the time
Oh,
embedded into
very
them
nice.
that you can
Yeah.
listen to. So I'd put that radio on and I would cook the traditional food, Sicilian food. She's a
Mm.
Sicilian first generation immigrant in the States. So yeah, I did loads of crazy things. I mean, I actually the whole record, the whole thing is written just me on my own, except for one
Mm.
song I co-wrote with a very good songwriting colleague and friend of mine. And I invited him in because I thought it would be an interesting experiment to co-write one of the songs. And I just kept flipping in and out of character. Like one minute I was talking as myself, and I would say, and Serafina would do this, and then I would
Hmm.
be like, yeah, but I have, I feel this, and he was like, would it just be easier if you stayed in character? And I was like, probably would. And so I did the whole thing in character, which was
Nice.
weird,
Yes.
very, very weird for him
Oh,
and me,
well, yeah. I mean,
but not Serafina. She was fine with it.
just chill. I'm also surprised that you had to ask for permissions. I would have thought that would be like public domain by this point, but
No,
no.
no, it's. I think I worked out that I'd be 82 by the time it
Oh,
became public domain because he only died in the 80s or 90s. I think 92 or something like that. I think he died in New York
that's
actually.
yeah. It's one of those interesting things, and I often find this with when looking up kind of rights for different people of not realizing how recently they were
Yeah,
alive or how they passed,
yeah, because
and
it's
discovering.
75 years after death.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, it's a while.
Well, unless you're Disney,
Um,
and in which case you just keep extending until the end of time.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But he bequeathed his estates to the University of the South,
Hmm.
and he left specific instructions that his work should be used to inspire other writers. So I sort of wrote to them saying, he did say inspire other writers, and that didn't exclude songwriters, I don't think. And they were like, yeah, we'll consider it. And then I mean, they were really fantastic, actually,
Hmm.
at all points, just brilliant to deal with. But it's just there's just a bit of a lag.
Yeah.
They ask for a piece of information, and then 2, 3 weeks goes by, and then I mean, first of all, there was a big lag. I didn't hear from them for ages, and then when I finally got to the top of the list, it was all relatively quick. But it would be
Hmm.
like, could we see all of the lyrics? Could we listen to all of the demos?
Yeah.
Could we, do all of that? And then now actually it's been really worth it because not only have they given me permission but also like a little blessing which has to go on
Oh,
all of the you know
yeah.
everything
Like
that
publicly
any
endorsed. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
exactly, which I think is quite useful for me probably because I'm a complete nobody in the music scene. So any kind of endorsement from the people that represent Tennessee Williams is probably a good thing,
It's always a
I
good thing.
think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think this also brings us quite nicely around to the second question of the day,
Hmm.
which is what are we here to talk about today, Trish? What topic did you bring to the table?
Well, I brought the science of creativity to the table
Hmm. What do you mean by
because,
that?
well, we've already talked about it really. It's
Sure.
this stuff that's going on in our brains when we
Hmm.
create, and why it's so important that we try and convince everybody to create regardless of the economic system
Hmm.
because it's so good for our health. Um, So my research more recently has been into this, into what's happening cognitively. And you probably actually in the States, I don't know how well known it is over there, the John Hopkins Institute and all of this neuro arts research that's starting to grow up. It's
Maybe.
really being led in the US.
Right.
But basically, what the studies are finding, and I'm not talking like a handful, like
Hmm.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies are finding, is that any form of creativity, regardless of how good, bad, or ugly it is good for your health, your
Hmm.
long-term cognitive health, particularly. And particularly as we go from sort of middle age to elderhood, let's call it that.
Hmm.
It can be literally the difference between being diagnosed with dementia or not.
Hmm.
And 1 in 3 people are going to be diagnosed with dementia. So it's a pretty big public health threat. And if you
Hmm.
could do something now, just by 5 minutes of guitar playing or doing a bit of sketching, it's probably a good idea. So this is where I'm really passionate about trying to encourage people not to listen to those narratives about I'm not creative, there's no point trying, on
Hmm.
the basis that regardless of whether or not you, as you say, whether you're going to become a master that makes a living from it, or whether you're going to become a master that just enjoys it, or whether you don't become a master at all and you do something for 2 years and try something else and try something else, that's really good for you. It's as
Yeah.
good for you as going for a run or anything else that you might do for your fitness, or sticking to a high fiber diet or eating
Yeah.
protein or whatever. It's as important as that, if not more important.
Hmm.
um, so that's my kind of current bugbear, my current my current
Your current
what
focus.
my current focus, my current like message to the world, um, is
It's
to
there's a curiosity there as well, I think, and it's interesting you say that obviously we're researching it now. You know,
mhm,
that's the main point of research of
yeah.
focus right now. And I think generally generationally there's these weird gaps because when I think of creativity, especially in the older generations, I think of grandparents and I think of people who were automatically involved in creative process, whether they knew it or not. You know, whether they
Hmm.
they were, the classic image is, people baking, people woodworking, people doing, knitting, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And then there's this weird space void behind that generation where there was a whole generation of people who saw that as an elderly practice and went, I'm
yeah,
never going to be that. I'm never
yeah.
going to involve myself with that. I'm going to go do modern things and be a modern person, and then found themselves kind of devoid when
And
they got
also
to
the
that age.
education system
Yeah.
tried to make workers,
Yeah.
didn't it? So like let's focus on STEM subjects. And I mean I went to a school, I've had this story where I say I left school at 16 with no qualifications. Not actually true. I had a CSE in drama.
Oh,
Um, I know. But
I hope
I
you have that framed
probably
somewhere, Tricia.
no. In fact, the other day we were clearing out the shed and we found all my certificates and they were just like we picked them up and they went into nothing. But I don't think anyone cares about
Be on
my.
record somewhere. Get it reprinted.
I don't think I need it. I don't know. I feel like now I'm doing a PhD, probably no one cares about
Oh,
that. I've reinvented that's another story I've reinvented. Not only am I a creative person, I'm also academic.
yeah.
Say it out loud and look, no one zapped me up. No hole arrived in the ground and there was no lightning bolt. It was
Hmm.
fine. It's true. um, but the um, the school I went to didn't have music. I couldn't do music. I wasn't permitted, wasn't allowed, wasn't offered. So I could do drama. That was the only creative thing really I could do. And then I wasn't very good at all the other stuff because probably I had some sort of neurodivergence going on and I
Hmm.
couldn't concentrate in lessons. But obviously, no one knew what that was in those days. And so it didn't serve me. I couldn't learn in that environment at all,
Hmm.
at all. But now I can because I'm at a university
Yeah.
in a cohort of PhD students where probably most of us are neurodiverse of some sort. And so they say at the beginning of lectures, if anyone needs to stand up during this lecture, feel free. And we all do, and it's brilliant because we can actually concentrate on all of the stuff. It's fantastic. I know how education's come on. Um,
I don't
so
think I was just going to say, I don't think I've met a PhD student or graduate who isn't some way neurodivergent. I don't think none. Like there's
it's funny
there's
because,
something about it which just makes it, oh,
yeah,
we're a little obsessive. Oh,
I know.
we can probably go do a PhD then.
Okay.
Yeah, there's that. Sorry, guys.
I think that's true actually. And it's funny in the creative world as well.
Mm,
It's I feel like I spent a lot of time masking and, appearing to be very normal. But actually I can be more and more myself the more I mix with other people who are to a greater lesser degree. Um, you know, just displaying characteristics which make them profoundly brilliant and interesting. And we're all like can celebrate our differences. It's no big deal. It's literally not a problem. But in the real world,
mm,
it can be an issue. So yeah, that's a topic for the series of my podcast that I've got coming out actually is all about kind of neurodivergence and neurodiversity and the relationship between that and creativity. It's really interesting.
Do
It's
you?
really, really interesting.
I'm curious if you obviously. So, I mean, from my perception of your role and what you do, it's very much obviously you create on your side, but most of your role is motivation for the people
Yeah.
to encourage them to create, to explain to them why it's important that they create.
Hmm.
Do you find that when you meet people who don't create and people who do create, that there is a challenge or pushback from either section of people?
So the ones that do
Yeah.
love it because
Okay.
all of us that are creatives have
Hmm.
got a seemingly endless capacity to talk more about how we could be more or better creatives because it's just a really fascinating topic
Hmm.
and there's a curiosity there and there's a storytelling there, so that there's
Hmm.
no pushback at all from the creative world because anything that helps us expand our creativity or gives us more confidence to
Hmm.
approach the gallery or whatever, people are usually up for that. And also because of my podcast being research based, I do try and find kind of angles on things which are quite interesting. So hopefully, I mean, the next series that I'm researching right now is about the ethics of creativity.
Okay.
So that is an interesting topic that I think
Hmm.
hopefully will bring people to it who are established creatives to think, oh yeah, no, let me just have a little conversation with myself about what are
Hmm.
the impacts of AI on this? What are the impacts of me telling the story of my own abuse? But what does
Hmm.
that mean for the other people that were there? And I don't know, these are all the things I want to
Yeah.
unpack in that series. Um, the non-creatives
Hmm.
usually I am pushing on an open door because they come to me because they have got that whisper, that little
Yeah.
mm, I've been to three art galleries this year and wished I could do that.
Hmm.
And what's stopping me? And so they're looking for somebody who kind of gives them permission
Hmm.
and encouragement to just try.
Yeah.
So I'm not really getting to the people who I haven't responded to that whisper yet. They're
Yeah.
not my people. I'm more with the kind of, I don't know, the mum who's dropping her kids off to school,
Yeah.
who's working 5 days a week, who always wanted to be a painter, whose friend has started doing it and she's got a
Hmm.
little bit of envy and
Yeah.
wonders why she let that go because she was really
Yeah.
good at it at school. And so
But
those are my ideal people, who I'm going, do you know what?
yeah.
If you've got 5 minutes at lunchtime, you could probably do a sketch,
Yeah. I
I
think
think.
there's something you said there as well, like and I discussed this previously with another guest called Ryan Gilmartin, who works in countryside spaces to bring
Oh,
creative
wow.
projects to kind of more farm communities, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's saying there's a level of like white coat syndrome where
Hmm.
you can only do it if you're given permission. You can
Yeah.
only do it if someone stood there going, "Yeah, no, it's okay. Like it's okay
Yeah.
to do what you're doing."
Yeah.
But also the reason I asked was I find, at least from my point of view, but also from speaking to other creatives, it's sometimes harder to motivate a creative because they know how to do it. So you're
Yeah.
almost questioning their practice by going, "Have you considered doing it this way?" And part of the inner brain goes, "No, no, you're wrong. Like you're wrong.
Yeah.
This is a waste of my time. I'm not going to go do that. I know how to
Yeah.
sing. I'm not going to try singing in a different register. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Teach me how to do this one better."
Yeah.
And it's this weird conflict I find with a
Yeah.
lot of creatives.
I mean, I think maybe I'm more attractive then to the sort of developing creative, then, if we could use
Mm,
that phrase. I don't know if that's a thing, than I am to the sort of established. I mean,
mm,
certainly I don't get kind of, very kind of established famous people coming to
Yeah.
my podcast at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
but or unless they do it in secret. But
Mm.
I do get people who are, successful artists. I mean, there are a couple artists that we've got a really lovely gallery shared working space near here that's brilliant. There's a few of them actually in West London,
Mm.
and one of my most kind of loved artists. In fact, I've got a couple of her work here in my house. It's just a fantastic artist called Amelia Wood,
Hmm.
and she listens to the podcast and she absolutely loves it. But she makes her full-time living from art, so she is a
Right.
fully practicing full-time artist. But I think also she does like to have a podcast on in the background. She's
Mm.
got to listen to something. I mean, we do have quite a big capacity for this content about this
Hmm.
topic, I think. So I think that, I'm always trying to offer people more podcasts, like listen to Yelling at Concrete because this is about your topic. So it's a
Yeah.
good companion to what I'm doing because I
Hmm.
don't know about you, but I mean, I listen to loads of podcasts and I get frustrated sometimes when my favorite one hasn't got an episode out yet. Like, I really want fancy listening to that. And there's nothing new.
Yeah.
Annoying.
It's funny you say
I'll have
that. I
to
don't actually
recommend
listen to
somebody else.
podcasts. I
You don't
don't.
listen to podcasts,
No.
don't you?
It sounds hugely egomaniacal in the sense of I put out an episode every 2 weeks, and it's
Yeah.
basically, do I love the sound of my own voice? But I listen to so few podcasts. I can't even listen to audiobooks. Just something about
Really?
them just does not
Oh,
sink in my head. It's not there. I have to have a visual accompanying
I
it. So
see.
like I
Yes.
watch a lot of YouTube essays, I watch a lot of those kinds of things,
Yeah.
which could be considered podcasts in their own right.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I have to have that visual element. Something about it just lands better.
But you are a visual artist, aren't you?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm visually led.
I walk, you see, I
Mm.
stomp the streets and I run.
Yeah.
And so this morning I did a half and half today. So I
Mm.
ran about 3.5K and then I walked about 3K. And I listened to an audiobook today, actually. I'm listening to Wintering by Catherine May.
Mm.
Excellent book. If
Yeah.
anyone wants a recommendation for a good book about slowing down.
That's what you want whilst running. It's a book about
Yeah,
slowing
yeah,
down.
exactly. I listen to music as well. My previous run, I listened to Zach Bryan's new album.
Oh, yeah.
That was my listen of choice. Well, half of
Mm.
it because it's very long. It's got 25 blinking songs on it. So you can't do that in one run unless you're running pretty far, which I wasn't.
When I run, I have to do music. I think I even tried doing podcasts while running because I thought this would be a great combination of, things super productive and that kind of thing. And I found myself just laughing, and I was like, "This is terrible for my breathing. I'm getting
I
a
think it's all
stitch
right, isn't it?
because
I
I'm
think
just
it's okay.
ruining my own run."
You're
So we went back to
sabotaging
music.
yourself
Yeah, just
with
sabotaging
with
myself.
with having a sense of humor.
Yeah. I'm curious then. There's a statement which came to mind when kind of looking through your bits, and obviously this topic of all these kinds of things. And you mentioned in some of your material that creativity being a human right,
Hmm.
and this idea of it, which I completely agree. It's something which we almost have to fight for right
Hmm.
now to say that it's a
Hmm.
human right. So I'm curious if the idea that whilst it's a human right, it also seems somewhat like a modern privilege to be
Mm.
creative at this point in time, and how
Yeah.
that sits with you.
I'm really trying not to let it become a modern privilege. I hate the
Mm.
fact that there was an article the other day I saw, and I can't remember where I saw it, but this kind of why all musicians are middle class.
Mm.
Because, I mean, a friend of mine's a flute teacher, and she says trouble is when she goes in, like funded to go into the state school, the kid
Hmm.
can't take the flute home
Yeah.
because if they take it home, their brother's going to nick it and sell it for drugs. I mean, I'm making up the story. It might not be
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a high risk. So then they can't do their practice, even
Hmm.
if they are, really dedicated and they really love that instrument. They can only do it at school. And if there's no practice room at school, then they can't practice. They won't take it out of their locker. They can't run the risk of it getting nicked, or played with, or whacked into the wall and then ruined, and they've got to give it back at the end of their school time.
Hmm.
um so that is a real problem, isn't it? I think that I mean, you're really touching on the problems of the only people that can afford to create are those that can afford the time, and the only people that can afford the time are those who are not working a shift pattern and working nights and trying to make ends meet, especially at the moment everything's so expensive. So I mean, I'm absolutely aware of that, and it's constantly on my mind is trying to make sure everything I do is as accessible as possible.
Hmm.
um, but I think there is a tendency to make it feel quite privileged. I think that
Yeah.
is a which is a real problem. And I don't really know what to do about it, to be honest, other than to try and encourage everybody to just take
Hmm.
that. It's back to that compounding thing. It's just if you've only got 5 minutes, it's still worth it. Or if you can only, find a Saturday afternoon we could go to a gallery, it's still worth it. If that's even if you can only go for an hour and they are free, don't
Hmm.
have to go and see the special. They are in the UK.
Yeah.
Museums and galleries are free, which is fantastic. Um, because there's one study that I found, it was done by the University of East London,
Hmm.
and they, over a 10-year period, looked for the incidence of dementia in people that went to a gallery or a museum once a month. And they found that those that went to a museum or a gallery once a month, they're over 50s, it was a
Hmm.
big, big sample group. So it was lots of age groups. And they found the incidence of dementia diagnosis significantly reduced in those that went to a
Hmm.
gallery once a month.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. So it's that vision, and that's a part of where you take your visual signals through your
Hmm.
eyes, go straight to the occipital lobe, I want to say, but I might not have got that right. I can't really remember. I've just done the research on this. You listen to my podcast and you'll find out. Um, but so basically, there's lots of things
Yeah.
going on there. It's not obviously just the artistic thing, it's also getting out of the house, small amount of
Yes. Yeah.
exercise,
Yeah.
social thing, blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
you can't put it all down to that. And obviously, there'll be genetic factors in those that do get a diagnosis that would be
Hmm.
out of people's control as well. However, the evidence was still quite compelling in
Hmm.
terms of the impact. So, it's just finding a way to fit it in, isn't it? And
Yeah.
feel encouraged regardless and not just think it's only for posh people to do.
Yeah. It's interesting as well. You touched on it there as I think people forget how many other things come along with the creativity aspect of exploring it. So, even if you're thinking, oh, I want to draw something or I want to paint something, I need to go get some paints.
Yeah,
It takes you out of the house. You have to go to a store to get it. And, there's the level of human interaction there. Obviously, you can get
yeah,
things delivered and all those kinds of things. But again, there's some aspect which is added to that creativity. And someone asks you what you're doing at the weekend. You're like, well, I'm painting. And then suddenly
yeah,
becomes like a whole conversation which you're
yeah.
having about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's an acoustic night near me. I'm near Brentford in West
Right.
London, and there's an acoustic night in a pub called the Magpie and Crown. And it's every Tuesday night and it starts at 9 o'clock. And usually, I don't think they'll mind me saying, it's usually a group of white haired men that come along
Mm,
to that. And I go sometimes. Obviously, I'm like, quite some margin the youngest there and usually the only girl. So they
mm,
love it when I turn up. But everyone just sits around. It's acoustic instruments only.
yeah.
Someone will bring a mandolin. Someone will everyone brings their guitars.
Mm,
Occasionally someone will bring a keyboard and kind of, put it down really low.
mm,
Sometimes there's a guy with a flute. There's all sorts of instruments, and you just go around in a circle, and you can either sing an original song or you can just sing a cover or a song that you like. Sometimes someone will say to me, "Oh, do you know this? I'd love to play that on the guitar. Can you sing it?" And I'll sing for them or whatever. And it's just such a great night. It goes like that, and before you know it,
mm,
it's midnight, and they're going, "Come on, last orders, get out, you
yep.
lot." And some of them go every single week, every Tuesday night. There they are, and that's
Mm,
fantastic, isn't it? And they're contributing to the economy. They're buying a pint, and
yep.
getting on the bus or whatever. It's brilliant. I mean, it's just fantastic. Everything about it is absolutely perfect in every way. I love it. I love them.
They can sound clip that a little bit and use it to advertise their night.
Yeah, exactly.
It's-
The guy who runs it is amazing. He is younger than most of the attendees, and he has a
Sure.
huge amount of enthusiasm for this like scene in
Mm,
Brentford. So he runs different things on different nights in different pubs, different sessions. Some
yeah.
acoustic and some are mic'd, what have you. But it's a real community. It's
Mhm.
really yeah, it's fantastic, and brilliant friendships come from it. It's just end to end perfect in every
Yeah.
way.
I
Mm.
think that's this the best way to do it is to have those like little moments which you can like expand upon. And
Mm.
kind of speaking to the point which you said of like what can people do in the
Yeah,
face of such a mountain of, red tape and all these kind of different things is like you say, like making everything as accessible as possible. Obviously, at the same time, there is a level of, you might need to make a living from whatever you're doing, but also redefining what success in creativity looks like
yeah,
and redefining that for people is arguably a bigger challenge. It's arguably a
yeah.
bigger challenge to change the view of, any society where you've been put into a situation where you have to make money on from everything. So therefore, doing
Yeah.
something like this feels incredibly frivolous, feels selfish, but it's not. It's just
It's
part of what
not.
we're doing.
And also, if
Like,
I mean, there's a motherhood thing that comes up from time to
mm,
time is that you can't create because you should be being,
yeah,
perfect
yeah,
domestic
yeah,
goddess, mother, working full time. You can have it
hmm
all if you slave and have nothing left for yourself, that whole
yeah,
myth.
yeah,
But actually, in the face of this impact on dementia,
hmm
investing in your creativity could be literally the most selfless thing you could do for your children
yeah, yeah.
if you think about the potential for kind of long-term healthcare later. So also, if you work in a normal job, everyone can steal a packet of post-it notes and a pencil. There's your equipment right there. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how many post-it notes are there in a stack of post-it notes? How many drawings is that? Tiny
Just
little drawings.
you just reminded me of when we used to nick pens from banks because so you need a biro. So well, yeah, well the banks have loads of biros. Argos has millions of biros. Have you ever seen? I'd love to know what the overhead was on stolen pens from Argos.
Or some A4 paper from the printer and a
Yeah,
pencil. That is all that you really need, isn't it?
back of an envelope, anything.
Back of an envelope.
Mm,
I mean, like in the British Library,
mm,
there's this special exhibition area,
mm,
also free for anyone who wants to go, where they have things like the Magna Carta, and they
mm.
also have the Beatles lyrics, and they are written on napkins.
Nice,
So
nice.
there you are. If the Beatles could do it with no equipment, I mean, they did have guitars.
Yeah,
Paul had that left-handed one, didn't he?
just have a
But
slightly
and
fancier
left-handed
guitar.
bass.
Mm.
He does now. But at the start, they
Yes.
had they had napkins and
Yeah.
backs of envelopes, and they are available for you to go and have a look at, and you can
Mm.
see how you can start with absolutely nothing. So, I mean, I know it's tempting to say, oh, I've got a friend who says that she loves fabric and sewing and textiles, and she can see how a pattern works. If you put a dress on, and she'll be like, oh, I can see how that works. I'd
Yeah.
make that for you. I can make that for you, no problem. Like, why don't you then? Oh, I'm going to take up sewing later. Like, when? Well, when I can have a space where I can have a proper big table and a
Yes.
sewing machine. Like, what about if you just got a needle and thread out now? I'm just saying, wouldn't that be better? Because you'd actually be doing something you really love. Because
Mm.
she talks about it all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
she like will see a dress and go, "Oh, I'd love to make that." I know,
Yeah.
I can see how that works. I could break that pattern down.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why don't you make it now? What are you waiting for? Until I've got a room with a big table and a sewing machine. Why don't you get a sewing machine and put it on the dining room table? There's my other idea. If the sewing machine's important, which it
Yeah.
might be. I don't know. I'm not very good with fabric, to be honest. It's not my strength or interest.
It's funny you say that though. I do find people love a space. They
Yes.
need to define a space, and I find it infuriating.
Yeah.
Because like you don't need a space, guys. Like, oh, where's my time? I'm like, how much time do you spend commuting?
Yeah.
You're on the train doing nothing.
I write my best lyrics on trains.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Usually, I used to, when I was working more than I am now, because I've switched my balance slowly
Mm.
over the last kind of 4 or 5 years. I've been
Yeah.
slowly reducing the work and ramping up the creativity.
Mhm.
Um, and when I was working probably about 3.5 days a week still, I would always carve out Mondays and I called it Music Mondays. Music Mondays, where I'm going to sit and I'm going to write a song. And
Mhm.
inevitably, I'd have nothing.
Yeah.
I'd be fiddling around my guitar, practicing my piano,
Yeah.
sitting with my notebook, doing the washing, 1,000 other things, procrastinating my way through the day. And then on Tuesday morning, I would get up really early, get off, go to work.
Mhm.
And on the train, I'd be like, oh, I've got so many ideas. Like, damn, why is that happening? But I spoke to somebody and they were like, you only get Tuesday morning lyric flurry because you did Music Monday. They are actually the same thing.
Mhm.
It's your back brain computing things that then flow out in a 23-minute train journey, which is just
Yeah.
enough to get the
If
first draft of a lyric down, turns out.
if nothing else to think about, so your brain's like, oh, that thing we did yesterday. Let's
Yeah,
let's solve
I've got
that.
that
Like we
now.
got
I've
that.
got
Yeah.
that for
There
you
we
now.
go.
I
We slept
computed
on
it
it.
while you were asleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Whilst were you sleeping, we were doing all the other stuff. I'm like, oh,
Exactly. You're
that's great.
welcome. If you wouldn't mind just getting that
Yeah.
out on the paper. And also, the movement of a train is very conducive to creativity, I find.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, moving
Actually,
vehicles generally are good for that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anything with a white noise rhythm, I think
yeah.
is very much underappreciated in that space.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, this is bringing us nicely to the end of the podcast, and a couple of
Yeah,
questions to finish off with, if you would be so kind. I don't know if
of
you,
course.
I don't, depending on the episode you watch, depends on whether you know what the questions are.
Oh, I
So,
can't remember.
okay, right. So there's two questions which I finish every episode with. I think we did a very good job of just kind of rounding out of the idea that humans need to create and that we should give ourselves permission,
Yeah.
or seek permission from other people if needed.
If you need one, yeah,
Yes,
I'll be
if
your
needed.
creativity.
Yeah.
I have a post-it note above my computer that says, "I am the fairy godmother of creativity," which I try
Very
and look at
nice.
to remind myself that that's what I want to do to encourage everybody to do that.
Like that. We live slightly different lives. My post-it note above my PC says, "Is the air conditioner on? Because if I use the kettle, it'll turn all the power off in my apartment." So
I have got four post-it
practicality.
notes above
Like,
my desk. One says, "I am a successful songwriter." And then it has a little thing. Whether or not what your definition of success is up
it's
for
down to
grabs.
you. Yep.
And I have another one that says, "I am a podcaster!" Exclamation mark. I mean, these are just my little badges. I feel like they need an update. Actually, I might actually.
Yeah.
One of my January things is to take those down and put some new ones up, but I don't know what they are yet.
Well, take them down now, and then over time, you'll on the train, you'll be thinking, "Oh, I'm that. I'm
Yeah,
this now."
it must
But
be true if it says it on the wall.
yes, someone wrote it down at some point. Get someone else to write
So,
it down, and then it seems
yeah,
more
exactly.
encouraging.
There you are.
Yeah. But so my first question is, and it can be based on anything we've discussed today, but also just like the world in general, of what is some truly great advice?
Oh yeah, I do remember your questions now.
Mm.
Um, well, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But it is true. Process, not outcome.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
is the best advice. Like that time when you're seeking that kind of flow state and it's not coming or whatever, just set yourself the target of make something bad. Just make some
Hmm.
bad art. I do a little challenge with a couple of songwriters that are friends of mine. Not every month, but we normally sort of do it the short month, February. We do it in October because October sounds like Rocktober, so you've got to do that. But
Sure.
basically, the deal is 4 lines a day, doesn't matter how bad they are, 4 lines a day. So you end up going, oh God, why did I agree to this?
Hmm.
Sod him. Fine. 4 lines about my lip salve. Screw you. Kind of thing. And then and then the next day you're like, oh, I've got a profound, brilliant idea. And then obviously it's way more than 4 lines and you because you made yourself do it. And it's only because you have that process and that discipline of and you allow yourself permission to write something bad that the good stuff comes. So yeah, seeking bad things and focusing on the process. Don't worry about the outcome. Easier said than done, but really don't worry about the outcome. The process is the thing.
I think that's very good advice. I also saw a great tip for visual artists the other day, which was people struggle with the blank page syndrome of,
Yeah.
blank page, get nothing down. And I saw someone said that during their studies, their art teacher forced them to paint every page of their sketchbook as soon as they bought the sketchbook. Just go in and like give it a wash of a color because then you
Yeah.
don't care if you ruin the page because you've already ruined all your pages. It's like, yeah, you're just sketching. So just give them a stain
I
and
love
then,
that.
yeah, and it
I
blends
got
in.
given this lovely sketchbook for Christmas. It's in a
Oh,
box and everything by
oh
my
no,
son.
that's
It's
too
so
pretty.
lovely.
You ever
I
going to
know.
use it?
And then I was like, I've got such blank page syndrome with it because, you
Yeah.
know, I know I'm not allowed to say that I'm not a visual artist, but I'm really not a visual artist. But it's also in this lovely
Oh
kind of
God.
people who are listening and I watch in a velvet like thing. And then it's so beautiful. I was like, I cannot possibly. So to get around the problem, I skipped a few pages and went in a
Went
bit
from the
later
middle.
with a nice snowy
Oh,
scene, which has got some perspective problems. And yesterday I did that little horsey
nice.
thing.
Very
Yes.
nice.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
are. That's how you deal with it. Basically, start on page 7.
Yeah.
Done.
Oh, that's a
It's
risky
easy.
endeavor as well. Very
They,
nice sketchbooks are always a challenge.
I know. I just wanted a book so that I could see a progression over the year
Hmm.
and good, bad, and ugly, rather
Yeah.
than bits of paper which just all end up in a different order and you don't really see what was on your mind, if you like, because it's sort of like a journal, isn't it? Your visual sketchbook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
funnily enough, I don't actually. I've only recently started maintaining like a consistent sketchbook. up to this point, most of it has been kind of one-offs, just like things which I pick up, or I never really continue the sketchbook journey, but I've been trying to do
Hmm.
more of that
Yeah.
continuous vibe of, well, this is what I was doing on this day and putting dates on things to see
That's what I'm
what I
doing.
was
And a
doing.
little
Yeah, yeah.
title. Yeah. The reason I did that fiery horse is because apparently it's the year of the fire horse, Chinese New Year. So that was the
Mm.
reason why that came about in my mind. Um, but yeah, because I have a songwriting journal
Hmm.
as well, but these have to be quite separate. And I do occasionally draw in here, and it just feels like I ruin it. And I don't really want my drawings in here because they're a bit like, I mean, I had a big kind of, I don't know whether you can see this, but a big kind of Christmas thing where
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like doodling a
There's some
thousand
funny
Christmas
looking
things.
lyrics there, Trish.
Someone gave me a turquoise pen. Before you know it, I'm just like, my God, what have I
Yeah.
done for an hour?
You're exploring. That's all there
It's
is.
good for me, though. It's good for me. It's going to stop me from getting dementia, I
That's the way. Yeah.
hope.
Which brings us to our last question, oddly, but probably not
Excellent.
related in any way, shape, or form. Um, of who should I speak to next? Who could I have on the podcast next?
Ooh, yes. So many options. I think you should speak to a songwriter called
Hmm.
Satch. That's
Satch.
who I think you should speak to. Yes. He is a amazing artist, a
Hmm.
really like profoundly brilliant guy. Really inspiring, really interesting, had a really interesting life. I interviewed him for I think the third or fourth series of my podcast, and
Hmm.
I loved the episode. It was such a great episode. And he's the sort of person that goes, he's the one who makes me write 4 lines a day for a month. And he's just a really interesting and fantastic person who I can introduce you to.
Oh, lovely. Yes. I mean, that's the same. I'm always happy to talk to anybody, and it's always nice to be. This I liked this idea of this chain letter idea of a
Yeah, I
podcast,
like it
where it's
too.
like, just recommend me someone because I spent the first few years just finding people I was interested in, and then every single time I spoke to someone, someone else would be like, well, yeah, I've been looking at this artist, and I'd be like, this. I'm like, oh, well, considering they picked the topic, let's go. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Let's see what I find as we go
yeah,
along. Yeah, no, I
yeah.
will definitely check them out. We'll find out. Well, it's been lovely having you on the episode, Tricia.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. And it's been fun for me listening to the episodes, your previous work as well. So I look forward to recommending you to my little readership, as small as it is, small but
Thank
perfectly
you.
formed as it is. Yeah, it's really fun to meet you and use the technology that we have available to us to connect across the Atlantic.
Yes, because it's very rare that I'm in London these days, unless I'm traveling through. 'Cause,
Yeah, that
these
whole
things happen.
Heathrow thing.
Yeah, it's not so much the Heathrow; it's the train trying to get back
Uh,
up country
oh
is the
yeah,
real challenge.
to north.
Yeah, yeah. Go up
Mm,
north. But no, obviously people should check out your episodes and podcasts for the motivational things of creativity and how to embrace that a little bit more.
thank you.
But yeah, in which case we'll leave it there and
Thank you so much.
we'll talk to these guys later. Thank you very much.
Ciao.